Chapter 12. The Cult. I lived with the Amish for a time. Jesus miraculously provided me with a house and land. I traveled with nothing, only relying on Jesus in dreams and visions. I lived in an apostolic community. I wanted to find the truth, and all these things were in my heart. I was preaching that Jesus had already returned, and many people who believe the Bible is the mark of the beast also believed me. My preaching split the believers in half. Half believed me, half believed Padre. I asked God what he meant by a big project. My wife and I dreamed of 2 babies being delivered to our house, one white and one black. Both babies were abused where they were and were coming to us to escape their situations and be cared for. The next day, a believer from Branson, Missouri contacted us. He told us of a dream of a baby and us. He said he thought he was that baby. We told him our dreams and he set out to come to our house. He hitchhiked and panhandled from Branson to our house in Ohio. When Branson arrived, we had no idea why or what to do. I talked about living with the Amish and how maybe that was what we were to do. Branson stayed with us, and we all had dreams and visions. Branson and I continued preaching the Bible is the mark of the beast online, and Jesus has already returned. We all had dreams of a black man from Cleveland. I had a dream he was being chased with a knife and had to run. Cleveland contacted us and said he was having trouble at home and was threatened with a knife and left. Then Cleveland also had dreams and drove to our house. We didn't know where to go, so we all got into the spirit. Through dreams, we were sent to Summerville, South Carolina. 3 of us had dreams of what day to leave. We all had dreams of the same date without knowing about the others' dreams. Cleveland could get into the spirit faster than all of us. We often used him for it. He joked that we would give him bed sores. When Cleveland first came to my house, he slept on the couch, and I slept in the recliner. One night he was being attacked in a dream. I was dreaming at the same time that he was being attacked. In his dream he called for me to help him. My dream woke me up to wake him up. I woke him up and asked if he was okay, and he told me he was being attacked and calling for me in the spirit. These were extraordinary times, and we didn't know anyone who lived as we did. We could have dozens of dreams a day that would answer any questions. Often we had the same dreams at that same time. We could ask others to meditate for us without telling them our questions. They would have a vision answering our question. One of us was not above another, but we followed everyone's visions. Before we left for South Carolina, I dreamed of Padre and his wife. In the dream, they were dogs. They bit my arm, and the spirit said, "These dogs steal the word of God." I cleared our apartment, got rid of everything we owned, and put our furniture, clothes, kitchen stuff, and even my guitar by the curb. Again, we gave up everything to follow Jesus. We set off for Summerville. We arrived in Summerville, thinking we would miraculously buy a place as we did in Missouri. While we were there, we looked around for a place to buy. My wife and I had our tax refund, and it was more that year than usual due to extra child tax credit. So we all lived off that money. We stayed in a hotel and meditated every day. We had many dreams rebuking us for our flesh. We all quit eating bad food, drinking soda, smoking, or anything bad for us. We didn't watch TV or listen to the radio. We either preached or meditated. Cleveland had a dream that we shouldn't wear logos on our clothing, so we threw away many shirts and a couple of ball caps. We had dreams that our families were not in truth, so we should not talk to them. We even argued when Branson talked to his son on the phone. We were close to the ocean and some had never been to it, but we had dreams that we weren't there for fun, so we didn't allow ourselves to go to the beach. We were not miraculously led to a place to rent or buy, so we asked Jesus why we were in South Carolina. We had dreams of another woman who believed this message but did not know where she lived. We were focused on finding a place to live as we thought we should. We talked to the woman and she wanted to come with us. She lived in Gainesville, Florida. Then some remembered they had dreams of Florida before but didn't know what it meant. My wife and I went to Gainesville to pick her up. She was still a smoker, and we made her quit. She couldn't touch a cigarette if she was going to be with us. She had some rough days. She went to drink a soda. We said, "Sorry, no soda." She wanted some sugar. We said, "Sorry, no sugar." We had a burner to cook on, and mostly ate rice and lentils. I was still writing my book. Branson dreamed of my book and an angel holding its hands up to show how long something was. The angel said, "How can this be the word of God when this is the word of God?" As the angel put more space between his hands. I did not know what his dream meant. I only knew something was wrong with my book. My wife and I, Gainesville, Branson, and Cleveland, were meditating in the hotel, wondering what we would do next when we had visions of Tennessee. We realized that we weren't getting a place to live first. We were traveling around to pick people up. We went to Tennessee and stayed in a hotel. Cleveland had visions of Paul and Timothy and received revelation for my book. As I had done for Padre, I told him to write a chapter in my book. Cleveland tried to write, but wasn't good at writing. He had a dream of stirring up a vat of ink for me. Cleveland told me his revelation, and I wrote it in the book. He continued to ask questions and have dreams, helping me write my book. Once the book was completed, I had a dream before I published it. In the dream, I baked a round loaf of bread. The top half was perfect, but the bottom half was burnt and I had to throw it out. I asked and asked in the Spirit to show me what was wrong with it. Through the Spirit, I knew to subtitle the book, "The Fall of Israel and the End of Christianity," but I didn't understand what it meant then. I could not understand what I was being told. I even had strange dreams about Jesus, but my belief being what it was, I could not interpret them correctly. I was told in a dream to publish the book anyway, and I asked why when there was something wrong. I had another dream, telling me again to publish the book anyway. I was confused, but I published the book, "The Table Fell in Heaven, The Fall of Israel, and the End of Christianity." I thought the title was talking about the future. As I was publishing my book, I had a vision of a sky full of demons above me, and the Spirit said, 7 million demons are watching you. We had thousands of dreams about significant events, personal prophecies, where to go, how to live, ghosts, and daily miscellaneous. One day we asked what to do for the day. Cleveland and I lay down to meditate. We both woke up with a dream about paying insurance. I didn't know his insurance was due that day, or that he even had insurance. We had so many miraculous things happen. There was no way. We didn't have the truth. While in Tennessee, I dreamed of a man who lived in Sevierville. Then I got sick suddenly without warning. I began to shake. I had a fever, and I told people it felt like I had kidney stones. Then Sevierville called me and told me he was sick, and his symptoms were the same as mine, only his were worse. I was taken on some of his sickness. I told him it happened because he should join us. Cleveland had dreams he was to leave his wife. Sevierville crawled to his truck, threw a bag of clothes in the back, climbed into his truck, and came to our hotel. Then our sickness went away. Now we had 6 adults meditating and trying to live for Jesus. We had visions of another believer we had not had contact with for a while. He didn't know what we were doing, and we didn't know where he lived. We knew it was time to go pick him up. Cleveland had a dream of us driving west to the interstate. So we headed to a water spring where we used to fill up jugs in Knoxville, not far from the interstate. Then Cleveland had another dream of driving up I-75 long way. We tried to contact the man by phone and Facebook, but we couldn't reach him. We continued on I-75 until about Dayton, Ohio, when Cleveland dreamed of a package being delivered to Columbus. We changed our route and headed for Columbus. Once we were in Columbus, I had a dream of a shoe hiding behind an aisle in a grocery store, and the spirit said to head towards Lisbon. I lived in Ohio most of my life, but never heard of any place called Lisbon. We stayed at a hotel in Columbus against dreams that told us to keep going. We thought it could be a long drive to where we were headed, and people were irritable and tired. I looked up Lisbon on a map. We headed towards Lisbon the next day, which changed our course again. We had 3 cars on the trip. I was in the last car with Sevierville. Sevierville and I were talking, and from being wide awake, I fell into a trance and saw 2 hands out in front of me, signaling us to stop, and the spirit said, "Exit here." I came to and messaged the first car and said, "Exit here, exit here." The exit was to a place called Newcomerstown. We stayed at a Super 8 motel and continued trying to get a hold of the man. For 3 days we meditated, tried to contact him, and drove around town, going to stores and hoping to run into him. We had no idea if he lived there, except we had followed our visions. After 3 days, we all started to lose faith and thought maybe we were crazy to drive that far and not know. Then I had a dream we were leaving in the morning. We were all baffled. How could our dreams be wrong? Why would he tell us to come there and we never picked the guy up? It caused some tension, arguments, and doubt. That night before bed, Cleveland had a dream of the man running and jumping onto our helicopter as we left the ground. We packed up to leave the following day and got in the car. The man finally contacted us just as we were leaving. We told him where we were, and he couldn't believe it. He knew we didn't know where he lived. He said, "You guys are a mile from my house." He rode his bike to us immediately. He only took minutes to get to us, and he was already packed. We asked him how he got there so fast. He said he had a dream he was leaving and needed to pack his things and be ready. His bag was already packed and at the door. It was the most amazing thing ever. We traveled hundreds of miles on dreams, visions, and trances to arrive within a mile of the man's house. He threw his bike in the back of the truck, and we were off. Everyone's faith was stronger than it had ever been. I had a vision of a girl who lived in California. In the vision, I was talking to her on the phone. Cleveland's and my dreams seemed to contradict one another for the first time. Cleveland had visions of Sevierville and his wife standing on their front lawn. The ground split apart, and they were separated, but the ground came back together, and they were reunited. Newcomer and a few of us had visions of working on Sevierville's house. His house wasn't finished. It was a large house worth a lot of money. It had 5 bedrooms, a game room, and a 4-car garage. At this time, we were out of money. Cleveland had a vision that if we went to the wrong city, we would be running for our lives naked. He had another vision where he heard, "If we went to the wrong city," Jesus said, "I will rebuke, renew, and reuse you." I didn't care that we were about to run out of money. I was trusting God. Each time I saw a vision of a person, we went and picked them up, so I thought we were supposed to head to California. We had little money on our way to California, so we lived off of raw corn and potatoes. We ran out of money in Topeka, Kansas. While stranded in Topeka, we all sneaked into one hotel room with 2 beds, and the rest slept on the floor. We were all starving. During the day, we would stay at parks all day. In our hotel, there was a group of men from Mexico working a job. There must have been at least 20 of them. They saw us outside and knew we needed help. One man gave us $30 to help us get a room. I felt convicted. We weren't supposed to talk to family if they weren't in truth, so how could we accept money from people who weren't in truth? I went to the man's room while they were all drinking and gave him his money back. Everyone in our group was freaking out, thinking I was going to get killed for disrespecting them. When I tried to hand the man his money, he did not move or take it from me. He just stared me down. Since he wouldn't take the money, I lay it beside him on the ground and left. He never said a word. I thought he and his friends were going to beat me up. While in Topeka, Branson woke me up in the middle of the night and said, "Derich, I was just raped by a demon." I told him it happens. It's okay. Meditate and send it away. We were asking how to make it to California, and we thought about Sevierville's truck since it was a gas hog. I went to Cleveland, who was sleeping in the truck, and told him to meditate about something, but I didn't tell him what it was. He had a vision of Sevierville's truck with a for sale sign in the window and a wallet full of money. We sold Sevierville's truck a few days later and headed for California. The day we left, Cleveland had a vision of Jesus raising his hands to stop us and saying, "Your minds were far from me this day." We didn't know what his dream meant. We thought we were getting in the flesh and didn't meditate enough. Then Cleveland had a vision in the car of a hand putting our car in reverse. Cleveland said it must have been a demon. We realized later that Jesus was trying to warn us, but Cleveland had me in cult leader status and couldn't believe I was wrong about going to California. Heading to California, we quickly ran out of money. There was a drought from Nevada to California, and gas prices were over $5 a gallon. We did not realize how fast we would run out of money. Everyone was irritable on the drive. Gainesville and Newcomer were arguing constantly, even screaming at each other at the gas station because we had just gotten into a fender bender in heavy traffic in Las Vegas. By the time we made it to Anaheim, we were completely broke. We used hot water at the gas station and free sugar packets to make oatmeal. We did not have money for a hotel, so we slept in a fitness center parking lot in town. Sevierville slept on the pavement beside the car, and Newcomer climbed a locked dumpster fence to make a bed from a tree branch and cardboard. The following day, a security guard caught Newcomer in the dumpster and kicked us out of the parking lot after Newcomer argued and almost got arrested. Newcomer had some things in his backpack that we could pawn for a few nights in a hotel. It was a rundown hotel, but for the cost, it was great. We could tell it used to be a nice place. It had 2 separate rooms and a kitchen. On our first night at the hotel, we could not find Sevierville. We were worried about him, so we looked for him and called for him. We couldn't find him, so we went inside to meditate. Cleveland had a vision of Sevierville standing in an alley, around a corner, hiding from us while clinching a gas station grocery bag. It turned out Sevierville was so stressed and had stopped smoking, he stole a cigar from the gas station and hid from us to smoke it. We didn't find that out until much later. We stayed at parks during the day and hotels at night. I knew a girl who lived somewhere in California. I never met her before, and she drove an hour or two to give us $200 for another night in the hotel. While we stayed at that hotel, we talked about Padre and the videos he made about the coming of Jesus. We talked about his lies. In one video, Padre stood up as if God was speaking through him and told people to count the number of the seal. He was opening the 4th seal. Those visions never came to pass. We started to deduce that you had to believe Jesus already returned, or your visions would not be correct. Branson said he thought getting into the spirit was like logging on to Google, and one would only find what they were searching for. I was afraid of what he said and told him not to blaspheme. Just before entering Anaheim, I had a dream about the girl we were going to see. In the vision, I heard an angel say I was being rude, and asked why I would wait to call her until I was already at her house. Finally, we contacted the woman. She came to see us. She said she had plans for the summer, but thought maybe she should go with us. As we talked with her, we had Cleveland go into the other room to have a vision for her. She got freaked out and said she was not coming with us. She contacted Padre and told him we were in a cult. At the time, I was offended, but I didn't know how right she was. When the woman didn't come with us, we realized where we messed up. I was not told to pick her up. I was told to call her while we were still in Ohio. We were not supposed to go to California. We went to the wrong city, and as Cleveland's vision told us, we were naked and running for our lives. We prayed for Jesus to help us, but no help came. We were out of money, food, and gas. I figured that Jesus would not help us because we did not obey him. The flesh got us into that mess, so we would have to suffer the flesh's consequences, and the flesh would have to get us out of that mess. We called my wife's mother, who gave us $2,000 to make it home, but we did not go directly home. Cleveland had a vision that we should preach to California before we left, so we headed to Long Beach. Again, we had no fun and did not go into the water. We were there for Jesus, not the flesh. Newcomer always got us in trouble, was combative, and almost got us kicked out of places. Sevierville and Gainesville weren't preachers, so they stayed in the cars with Newcomer. Branson used a marker and got cardboard out of the trash. We made signs that read, "The Bible is the mark of the beast," and "The Bible is an idol." And we began preaching to live for Jesus and the Holy Ghost. We preached to many people that day, and some stopped to ask us about it. We talked to people about our message and my book. My mother-in-law's money had not come yet. We were starving. Our clothes were falling off. We had to drink tap water, and we preached for hours. While we were preaching, I left to go to the bathroom. When I came out of the bathroom, Branson and Cleveland were preaching, and a man with a tattoo on his forehead was yelling at them. I began to walk up to preach with them, but I saw a newcomer coming to see what was going on, and he was chomping at the bit to get in the argument. I stopped him and told him we would wait to see if anything came of it, because Tattoo had friends joining him, and I didn't want Newcomer getting us into a fight, or it seeming like we were stepping up to brawl. A crowd gathered. One of Tattoo's friends with red contacts started circling Branson and Cleveland on his bike. Branson was standing toe-to-toe with them, yelling back, preaching about the Holy Ghost. Tattoo was screaming, "I got that shit in me too." Tattoo's friend threw his book bag down, and bullets fell out. Then the crowd who was recording the argument said they were going to call the police. Tattoo and his friends left after ripping up Branson's and Cleveland's signs. I still had my sign, and Branson made more signs, and we continued preaching. Branson, Cleveland, and I stood together preaching, and Tattoo and his friends returned. Tattoo had a metal pole and acted like he would hit us with it, then said we weren't worth it and walked on. Later, a man came up behind Branson and me, taking out all his piercings and chains. We thought he was going to kill us. We thought Tattoo sent him. I walked up to him and began telling him our message. The man began to cry and said he was begging God for truth that day, and he was homeless and sleeping on the beach. We thought the man hearing the message fulfilled the vision of us preaching the truth on Long Beach, so we returned to a hotel for the last night in California. We had dreams about getting a place, a farm, and a community like the one I had in Missouri. So on the way home, we stopped in Missouri. We stayed in St. Joseph for a few days, looking for a place. We checked out a couple of houses. Cleveland's car broke down, so we got it fixed. We had dreams of Tennessee and working to finish Sevierville's house and sell it to buy some property And then we were off to Tennessee. We understood where we went wrong, and we were back on track. We arrived in Tennessee, and a few people in the group got jobs so we could afford to fix Sevierville's house. Those with construction knowledge did not get jobs. We would work on the house. We were back on track, had a plan, and finally understood our purpose. But we could never have foreseen what would happen. Sevierville and his wife had many possessions from their time as unbelievers. People in the group started to argue. Sevierville bought and hid a six-pack from us, but we saw what he did in visions. We began to be attacked in the spirit at night, and concluded it was from all the earthly possessions in the house. We had to get rid of their possessions, and they had to cut off their family. We started a bonfire. We burned anything that could be burned, and had many trash bags to haul to the dump. We burned family photos, photos of their children, and priceless gifts and memories. We didn't sell anything, though we could have made much money off some of their things. We didn't care about this world. Anyone who did was our enemy. Someone contacted my mother, but I said we could not talk to that devil. We were light, and those who didn't believe us were darkness. No exceptions. We were going to live the way the Bible said. We would have all things in common and no fellowship with an infidel. Arguments in the group began on the road, but got even worse once we were in Tennessee. Starving on the road, people argued about how much food each person got and who needed more food. Branson even argued that our children should not be allowed to eat better things than us, but should have to eat whatever we ate. And if we starved, they should starve. He was angry that we always fed the kids better things, even when we could not eat. At the house, arguments started about who was working, whose money was whose, and what should be bought with the money. When we got a new place, I said the house should be in Sevierville's and his wife's name because we were getting the money from selling their home. Others said it was not right. They said that meant we cared about earthly possessions, and Sevierville and his wife had to be all in or out. Some argued about who liked who the most. Cliques formed in the group by humor, age, likes, and dislikes. Every day was getting more challenging, and more arguments were arising. While we were burning one night, a few of us heard something demonic coming from the house. What followed, words cannot do justice to the story. People were angry that me and my wife could have sex, and some of them had no one. Cleveland had dreams of people in the message masturbating, and the spirit said, "They're lusting, they're lusting." No one would confess who it was at first. I had also masturbated in the shower, and I didn't confess either. Then many dreams were had about sex, what was allowed and what was not allowed. One dream of Cleveland said we should not have oral sex. From that point on, we thought it was a sin to have oral sex. At about 3 a.m. one night, my wife and I were the only ones awake, and we had oral sex. What followed, we blamed on us having oral sex. We had our window open and heard a demonic moaning coming from outside. Then we heard an otherworldly scream that sounded like a demonic banshee. Then noises started to happen all around us. We thought someone was outside doing a human sacrifice. The screams were so close it sounded like they surrounded our house. The house was in the country, with a fence all around the property and a gate, not to mention the hill you had to walk up to get to the house. We heard someone laughing hysterically, someone yelling a cheer like, "Who? Who?" We heard a scream of terror like nothing we had ever experienced. We heard a deep demonic scream, like nothing a human could do, and we heard what sounded like 3 devils screaming in harmony at once. All the screams were distinctive and started at different moments, until they all joined together into a crescendo and faded at once. It was the scariest thing we had ever heard. The following day, we asked everyone in the house if they had heard all the screaming and noise last night. We told them it sounded like some ritual human sacrifice. All said they didn't hear anything. We couldn't believe they didn't wake up to the noise. That day, Cleveland and I had dreams of Gainesville and Branson. Gainesville had secluded herself from the group and felt like an outcast. She chose to sleep in the garage. Branson was always back and forth in his mind, constantly doubting and questioning, and he slept in a room upstairs by himself. Sevierville and his wife slept in a room adjacent to ours, and Cleveland and Newcomer slept upstairs together. Cleveland had dreams of Branson lusting and of Gainesville. He saw them in a vision as dragons, falling from heaven and being put into a prison. We deduced they were the reason for the group's fighting and disruption. That day, we kicked them out of the house. Gainesville got angry. We told her to wait until that night, and we would get her a bus ticket and take her to the station so she could go home. Instead, she walked down the road screaming and cussing. We all had always thought she had issues that needed medication. She just never seemed right. A couple of hours later, Gainesville pulled up in a police car, screaming to the police about how we were a cult and a bunch of wolves. The officer was very suspicious that the house was so empty. When the officer came in to talk to me, Newcomer and I were painting the house. She asked for Newcomer's name, and he said he didn't answer questions. The officer said, "Smart man." The officer grilled me, asking what we believed, if we prayed, and if it was mandatory. Gainesville told her there were no beds in the house and that we controlled what people ate. The officer asked me if there were beds, and I pointed to the only bed in the house and told her that was where the children slept. We told the officer we would ride Gainesville to the bus station. The officer left her with us, and someone took her to the bus station. Branson was fine being alone. He had been homeless and panhandling a lot, so he stayed by the river in town to be close to his job. Cleveland had a vision that since Branson didn't leave, he could escape spiritual prison if he repented. That night, I slept in the room with Cleveland and Newcomer so we could meditate about what to do. We had dozens of visions, all of danger. As we all fell asleep around 3 o'clock in the morning, a really bad feeling was in the air. We were all sleeping on the floor on separate blankets. Suddenly, all three of us were in a trance. Cleveland did a back bend, and a loud roaring voice started coming out of him. Then his body contorted, and he jumped up into a pouncing stance on one hand and knee. The way he moved was beyond humanly possible, especially for a short, overweight man with asthma who could not do a single push-up. I backed up quickly. Cleveland was looking straight at me. But it wasn't only Cleveland. His mouth looked like the Cheshire Cat. His eyes were glowing red. His face looked like the shape of a lion's face, with shadows dancing in and out. And he screamed so loud, so demonic. I had never felt power like that. I even felt power in myself. I knew he was going to kill me, but I felt so powerful I could have caught him and thrown him with one hand. Newcomer jumped up, and he and I began putting our hands out in a stopping motion in unison, and screaming in unison. It was like something out of Dragon Ball Z. When the screaming was over, we all fell like sacks of potatoes and began to fall back asleep, as if it had never happened. As I was being lulled to sleep, I realized what had happened. It took all my willpower to stay awake. I jumped up and said, "We are not going to sleep after that." Newcomer rubbed his face in the pillow, saying, "That did not just happen. That did not just happen." We told Cleveland what happened, but he said it was probably just his asthma. He said sometimes he woke up screaming. Then we explained to him the details, and Newcomer pointed out that blood was running down his leg from his knee. When Cleveland touched the blood, he remembered what happened. His face turned pale. My wife called from downstairs and asked what happened. She thought it was something like we heard the night before. I told her it was us and to come upstairs. Cleveland remembered the whole thing and said mine and newcomer's eyes were like blue flames of fire. Then Cleveland remembered something else. Cleveland said the night before, he remembered newcomer rolling around on the floor laughing like a crazy person, and himself jumping up and saying, "Who? Who?" When Cleveland made that noise, my wife and I looked at each other. It was the same noise we heard the night before. Cleveland was scared that night, so I slept on his blanket with him. He thought I was crazy because he had just got possessed and was going to kill me. The terror and feeling of that night bothered me for years every time I tried to fall asleep. We asked others in the house the next day, and they remembered it happening too. 6 people got possessed simultaneously, all in trances from a dead sleep, and fell back asleep remembering nothing, just as newcomer, Cleveland, and I almost did. My wife and I realized that was why it sounded so close and coming from all around us. It was because it was happening inside the house, except for Gainesville, who was in the garage. She was the one moaning and screaming like a banshee, making the noise we heard first that came through the window. Sevierville screamed a deep, demonic scream. Branson had 3 voices coming out of him at once, and Sevierville's wife screamed in terror. It all made sense, but how could that happen? How could people with the Holy Ghost, not living in the flesh, eating good, no sugar, sodas, alcohol, no attachments to the flesh at all, get possessed? Something was wrong. The following day, we all talked of the nights before. Downstairs, chandeliers were swinging, and everyone heard and felt the presence of what had happened. Cleveland became scared of everything. He began asking, what if he got possessed at work, delivering pizza and ran people over? What if he got possessed and killed someone? How could a demon overtake his body? He screamed so loud that night that he lost his voice for 3 days. It was very hard for him to speak. Cleveland remembered the dream he had just before his possession. He was at work in his dream, and I handed him a note to give him directions. He opened the note and it said, Revelation. He said he didn't need my directions and could do it alone. Cleveland saw himself driving around a mountain until he reached the top. He said it was dark and reminded him of the Tower of Babel. He was lost. He saw a dead-end sign at the top of the mountain and was very scared in the dream. Then a demon grabbed him from behind, wrapping his arms around him, and that is when Cleveland got possessed. Just before Cleveland got possessed, newcomer was having a dream where I was sitting in a room, sweating and trying to do something on the computer, while others watched from the windows, saying, "Is he going to finish it? Is he going to finish it?" The next night, we all slept in the same room together. Cleveland and I woke up to Sevierville's wife screaming, and I felt like I was in a trance again. We saw something standing at the doorway, and I yelled, "Get out!" But the voice was not mine. It seemed otherworldly, as if God was speaking through me. Cleveland and I said it was the most powerful things we ever heard. That night, we had visions of leaving the house. 3 of us saw guns in a dream, which meant doing something immediately. Cleveland had a vision of a sign on the gate that read, "Quarantine, do not mass exist." The next day we were leaving, but we had dreams that Sevierville's wife should not come with us. Cleveland, newcomer, my wife and I went to a hotel in Pigeon Forge. We had dreams that Branson could return, so he joined us in the hotel. Cleveland came to our room to sleep with us one night in the hotel because he felt that evil presence again. Branson and newcomer were in the other room next to us. We began hearing scratching on the wall in the middle of the night. It sounded like someone trying to get through the wall. The next day, Branson remembered what happened. Newcomer got possessed. His eyes looked like cat eyes, and he walked to the wall trying to scratch through to get to us. We saw the scratches on the wall in his room. Newcomer told us he was lustful and said he thought he should leave. Newcomer kicked himself out after we had some visions about it. He bought a tent and stayed in the woods behind his job. Branson, Cleveland, my wife and I went to a different hotel. Sevierville thought he should return to be with us and leave his wife, which we told him he should. We waited for him at a dugout behind a school. The school where I screamed and yelled at God, thinking I'd blasphemed years before. Sevierville packed a bag and stayed with us for a few days, but we all knew something was wrong by this time. For weeks we said something had to be wrong, we all thought it, but now it was for sure something was wrong. We still stayed in the hotel for a month or so. Cleveland was making a journal of all of our exploits. A police car was sitting outside the hotel every day, and we heard that after we left Sevierville's house, DHS showed up. We freaked out and Cleveland buried the journal. We felt we were losing faith, and we rebuked one another for it, and went and got the journal back. While talking to everyone night, I went into a passionate preaching about us doing what is right. Something, a light the size of an egg, landed on my head while I was preaching. I felt it. It felt like it busted, and oil ran down my face. The light bounced on my head, and then back up and to the side through the ceiling. The light was so prominent that all our heads followed its path at the same time. We all said at the same time, "Did you see that?" One morning we felt we were all slacking off and losing faith. There was a small storm outside, and a bolt of lightning struck our hotel room door. It sounded like a bomb had exploded and we all woke up. Cleveland was having a dream just as the lightning struck in his dream. He heard what he said was the voice of God, very loud and very angry, yelling, "Get out!" We were all scared to death. God was telling us we had failed. We were not treating him as we should. Then I had a dream. We were all standing on a mountain holding a large circular thing about the size of a trampoline. In the dream, the Spirit said, "Are there enough who believe to manifest God?" As the Spirit said that, I saw a physical block wiggling out of the sky until light shone into the world. Then a spirit so powerful surrounded us that our clothes blew in the wind of it, and we could not speak our language. It seemed it wasn't good enough to kick some out. God was kicking us all out. We tried to figure out what was wrong. We had many visions and dreams, but Cleveland suddenly had bad dreams about me. He had a vision of me in a tub of dirty water, with a gold medallion around my neck, and a snake coming out of the medallion. I found out he was talking to Padre secretly. I told him how before our journey began I had a vision of Padre and his wife, where they were dogs, and the Spirit said, "These dogs steal the word of God." Then he had dreams of Padre trying to seduce him with a cookie. Cleveland got into the Spirit to ask about me. In the dream he saw a mirror on the ceiling with a 0 on it. The mirror fell to the floor and shattered. Then an angel took him into the stars and said, "Who is Derich Jester? Who is Derich Jester?" The angel took him to a faraway star and said, "He is a great city in heaven." The star opened up into a great white city. We all began having conflicting dreams about what to do and about each other until we decided nothing we did worked. We were going to kick Branson out again. Sevierville went back home to his wife. We had dreams about kicking my wife out of the group. Finally, we all decided to go our own way. Cleveland had dreams about what would happen when we split up. He saw himself in a woman's shower cap with painted toenails, walking on his heels across the floor, holding a paper bag like a crazy person. He saw I was working at a grocery store, and they came to see me. I was puking and saying we had to find the truth while they returned to their lives. We all said our goodbyes, and some of us cried a little. It was an unforgettable experience, as if we were friends leaving each other after a crazy spiritual summer. Cleveland went back to Ohio, and my wife and I went back to my mother's house. Newcomer stuck around for a while, living in his tent, but then we gave him a ride to the airport, and he was off to Alaska, where he had other family. To move back in with my mother, I had to apologize to her and my stepdad about the cult and calling them devils, and I explained a lot of what happened and what we were trying to do. I would never be the same again. We had seen, done, heard, and lived in a way that some have never even read about. We even saw things I have never heard of happening.